Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside here, of course, each and every week is none other than LPGA professional and Legends Tour player Cindy Miller. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted.
And we are the hosts of the Women of Golf show. I forgot to throw that one in. I forgot to throw that one in there. I'm slipping in my old age, Cindy. Anyways, welcome to the show, everybody, and thank you for joining in. And Cindy, before we start, let me just very quickly remind everybody that we are live every Tuesday morning, unless otherwise stated, from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on blogtalkradio.com. Best way to find us, of course, is to go to blogtalkradio.com, and up in the search key you can type in Women of Golf, and that will bring you to the main page. And on there, of course, during the live shows, at the very top is, of course, the link to that show. And for some reason, if you're not able to join us during that time slot, not to worry. Just go to the link blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, and you can just scroll down to the on-demand section. And all of the shows, of course, are auto-recorded, so you can certainly catch up if you've missed any of the previously aired episodes. But we're glad that you're joining us live. Also, go to iTunes.com as well. Type in under the podcast section, Women of Golf, and that will also take you there as well for those of you tuning in through iTunes. So thank you very much for joining us this morning on this very cool January 19th here in Florida. And I know, Cindy, I have no right to complain. But
yeah, you don't. So zip
no,
it.
I know. Cindy, of course, is in the Buffalo, New York area, so they're much colder than we are here in Florida. But we got a great show this morning. Actually, a show that we originally were going to air back in December. I think it was December 8th, if I'm not mistaken, of last year. And unfortunately, right up into the 11th hour, we ran into some technical difficulties and had to cancel. So our very special guest this morning, who was very gracious in rescheduling with Cindy, is Kate Tempesta, and she is the LPGA Teachers and Club Professional and Director of the Junior Golf Program at Montauk Downs. She'll be joining us here in just a little bit. Don't forget, if you're interested in coming on the show or reaching out to us, you can do so. Cindy's email address is cindy@cindymillergolf.com. If you're somebody in the golf profession and you want to come on, you feel you have something to share with the audience, you can reach out to Cindy at cindymillergolf.com. You can also reach me as well at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And you're always welcome at any time through the live broadcast if you want to call in and say hello to either Cindy, myself, or maybe you have some questions for our guests. We would love to hear from you, and you can do so at area code 347-945-5855. And also, for those of you tuning in, we would love to hear from you, not just to say hello, but we want to know what you're thinking and what you're looking forward to for this 2016 year. What areas of your game could you use the most help on? Let us know. Reach out to us at cindy@cindymillergolf.com or myself, ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and share your thoughts and views as to how you could improve your game and how we can help you do that. So please reach out. We would love to hear from you. Cindy, we've got lots of things happening this year, not just with the show, but in golf. I know on the men's tour already starting out, Jordan Spieth won last week at the Hyundai in Hawaii. So he's off to a great start this year.
And who's the new guy that just won?
I don't know. You know, I missed
He won in a playoff.
Yeah, I know. I'm not.
I'm like, who is this kid? I got to start watching golf more because I didn't really even know who. There were two kids. The one kid from Brigham Young and Zach Johnson, And then this new kid, and it's like, wow, I don't know who he is, and I can't even remember his name, which is terrible, but he just won a PGA Tour event, so that's really bad.
Yeah, he just won the
program.
Yeah, the Sony. And I'm like you, you get so busy with different things, and, I used to have a lot more time to actually watch some of the tours a lot more, and it just, with just so many other things pulling at you all the time, it just gets difficult. And but so I try to recap if I can, and I just didn't get a chance from this weekend, through some of the news and that. But I did watch a little bit through, and it was really an interesting. One of the things that was interesting about the course that they played this week. It was definitely a real shot makers. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's always a shot maker's course, but this was truly a real test of the men because you couldn't just go off with a straight shot. You either had to, a lot of the holes, you had to either hit a draw or fade the ball in. So you had to have that ability. And there were a lot of holes that were actually very difficult. They were very narrow coming right out of the chute. I know a couple of shots that Brandt Snedeker that was playing, it was literally out of a chute in order to get out to the fairway and didn't leave him a lot of room. So you have to be very accurate off the tee, but you also have to be able to make those shots under pressure, and that's not always easy. And that's something, too, what are some things, Cindy, well, we've got a few minutes here before Kate comes on board, that you try to do to help people come over, sort of get over that fear and playing a difficult hole? What are some things that you try to, instill in their minds to get them prepared for when they're playing difficult holes like that?
Well, I think the number one thing is to realize your ability, the level of your ability. You got to try to play a hole. There's almost always a bailout area, and you have to figure out, how far can I fly the ball? So if you have to carry it over water or a big waste area or something, you might want to lay up. You might want to go to the side. You might want to just play it smarter. Because what happens, I think, in most people's heads is while they're standing over the ball, they have doubt and apprehension, and they're not positive, so they haven't committed to their decision. They may not even know they're making a decision. And all they hear is the internal dialogue of, look out, be careful, don't do this. Yeah. And then, kaplunk, it goes in the yuck. So I think it's getting a little more, having a strategy of how you can better play the difficult golf holes.
Well, and I think it all boils down to, as you said, with confidence in that. And obviously the more that you play and the smarter that you play, you're going to build that confidence. And there's really, golf can be a very difficult game, but it can also be an easier game if you have the right tools. And it's not just a matter of having the right clubs in the bag. It's a matter of working on the mental aspects of the game. And we're going to be talking about that here very shortly as you're, I know, putting together a brand new, or shall I say a revised series on the mental game under your brand Own Your Game, which we did the previous year. And it was very, very well received, and we want to do it again this year because I think that's an important area. So we're going to be starting that next month here shortly, so definitely stay tuned for that. But that's a big part of it. I think really, everybody can sort of make do with their shot making if it's not necessarily the best, that you can kind of navigate your way around the course. But if you're mentally not prepared for what's coming ahead, that can really add the strokes up fast, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, you just need to be very aware of what your skill level is and play holes a little bit smarter. You've got to get away from the doubles and triples. They will absolutely kill you. Absolutely kill you.
Yeah, and Cindy, you've talked about this before on the program about, when you were playing, it wasn't really the shots that hurt you. It was just putting too much pressure on yourself at any given time, and that's something too that I think a lot of. I mean, you're always going to hit a bad shot here and there, but I think when you get to this level of play, your shot making is pretty stellar, I think. But it's really the mental side and the confidence side. Do you not agree that that's really what troubled you from time to time throughout your play?
It's becoming aware of what you can pull off. Mm-hmm. And making wise decisions within your own personality. So my personality wants to go for it, fire it at the pin, and it may not be the best choice. So I have to step back and say, do I have a 50-50 chance of pulling this off? And if the percentages are against me, I need to lay up and bite the bullet and take the hit. Whereas, like Alan is more prone to lay up and play it safe, and sometimes he probably definitely needs to go for it, and he just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have to find a balance. I mean, there's times, as you said, that you need to go for it, and there's other times where you need to be have a more conservative play. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of amateurs make, as you said, you have to assess the situation, see what, where the trouble lies, but you don't have to focus on the trouble and let it sort of creep in and overtake your thoughts, but you need to be aware of what's out there. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, particularly for men, maybe not so much on the ladies' side of things, but the men particularly, I know, with a lot of amateurs, is they're very quick to pull out that driver and just sort of try to bomb their way down the golf course. And that's not always the smartest play. There's a lot of holes maybe they could, ratchet things back and go off the tee with a hybrid or even an iron in some cases just to get themselves in position.
Absolutely.
And that's where, working with a professional, whether it's just taking lessons or whether it's working, depending on what level you're at, working with a golf coach can really help sort some of these issues out, because a lot of people, as I said, they get out there and they just try to navigate themselves around the course, and they're focusing more on their shot-making ability as opposed to really thinking their way. And if you look at some of the greatest players...
Yeah.
Right, exactly. If you look at some of the greatest players that have played out there, both on the men's and the ladies' tours, they've all been great thinkers around the golf course and not necessarily always had the best physical game. Nicholas comes to mind. I mean, there's a lot of others out there on the men's tour, and there's some on the ladies' tour that were great shot makers, but not necessarily the best in the field. But they were great thinkers around the golf course and able to manage their time and their efforts quite well. And that's something that we could all.
That's what we plan to bring to our audience with the Own Your Game series. We're going to be offering an online learning opportunity April 4th through the 25th, 4 Monday nights in a row, so that our listeners have the ability to take some personality assessments, find out how they learn, and we're going to offer 4 one-hour webinar series and 3 behavior assessments, basically, so you can find out who you are, how do you learn best, do you want to see it, feel it, hear it, and what's your mental golf profile look like? Are you focused? Do you have emotional stability? Do you fly off the handle? What do you do? So we're going to not only teach the audience that on the radio show, we're also going to offer a 4-part series on webinar, live calls. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's great, and that's something that I think that more people need to really, and I'm all for going to the driving range or the practice tee and working on the physical part of the game. But you have to put time in preparation, especially for somebody that's playing, a lot of these club members out there that are playing the same course week in, week out. You can spend hours out in the driving range, working on hitting what you think is the perfect shot. But if you're not really thinking about how you're going to navigate around that course, and you have a perfect opportunity if you're playing a home course on a frequent basis, to really just, grab out a scorecard and just, look at the holes and just sort of map out what you want to do. And as you're playing, make notes. I know you have to be careful and slow play and things like that, but you can still, when your partners are taking a shot, you can kind of make some notes and say, okay, there's trouble over here, and I need to, this is where I need to position my ball. So there's things that you can do to prepare yourself. And then when you go home and you've got some downtime, then you can take the opportunity to sort of think through some of those holes that you played that day and how you handled them and how you could have done things differently and sort of map that out so that the next time you go out there, you've got a little bit more ammunition as opposed to just worrying about whether you're hitting the shots perfectly. And don't be afraid to ratchet back, especially for the men, on those drivers. You don't need to hit the driver off of every hole. There's no law saying you have to do that. That's just something that people have sort of done for years, but it's not always effective. Sometimes you have to be playing smart, and that's what we're going to teach you here on the show. Both the ladies and the men that tune into the program. Cindy, let me just, she's not quite here yet, but I know she'll be coming in very soon. So let me just read off a little bit here about our guest this morning. And then when she comes on, we'll bring her on board. And then I also want to just remind everybody about your boot camps and things like that as well. As I mentioned this morning, it's from a previously aired show that we had committed her to join us on. That was back in December 8th of 2015. Our very special guest this morning is going to be Kate Tempesta. She's the founder, partner, and president of FUN, as she likes to be referred to, and is a member of the LPGA Teachers and Club Professionals and the director of the junior golf program at Montauk Downs. She is leading junior golf professional in the New York City area. Kate's groundbreaking curriculum combines golf basics with activities that extend and enrich learning in an environment that is both fun and challenging for children of all ages. She embraces the LPGA's holistic view of the golfer, as well as Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. She takes into account individual learning styles, group dynamics, and ability levels, and knows how to make the most of every learning experience. As a leading expert in the golf industry, she has spoken on several panels about growing the game of golf, including the inaugural PGA of America Junior Golf Summit, the National Golf Course Owners Association Annual Conference, and 2014 PGA Youth and Family Summit, and several section events as well. And she has presented to PGM students at both Penn State University and, of course, Florida Gulf Coast University. So quite a list of laundry list, if you will, of many accomplishments, and many, many more. There's just really too many of them to read all of them out here. But we're looking forward to talking to her this morning, and I think she's joining us right now. So let's bring Kate Tempesta to the air.
Good morning, Kate. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Cindy. Hi, Ted.
Hi. How are you doing, Kate?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for as I was mentioning to the audience just a few moments ago, we had originally had you scheduled to come back in early December, and unfortunately we ran into a technical issue, so we had to reschedule. And thank you for doing that. I know you're busy, so it's we appreciate you giving of your time. Cindy, why don't you start things off, and we'll continue from there.
When I think of you, I smile, and the word passion comes first. Tell us why.
That's a great compliment. I appreciate that. That means the world to me. I was very, very lucky. I think I just had two parents that have just taught me to follow my dreams, and I've watched them love what they do for years as educators, and I've always sort of taken the path least traveled and figured it out, and I followed my passion and moved to New York City, and I went through 3 different professions, and I found children, and one thing led me to the other. I loved what I was doing each step along the way, and when I found children, I knew that that's what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be empowering children. I didn't find golf until much later in life, and when I found that, I was equally as passionate. So I, just feel very, very grateful, very, very blessed to be able to put all of these things together and create something that just doesn't even feel like work, but yet it's my everydayness.
That's awesome.
That's a very interesting statement, Kate, because a lot of people out there obviously may not enjoy what they're doing, and I think when you find a passion, as Cindy put, for what you are doing, it doesn't seem like a job, right?
No. I mean, of course, there are aspects of it, the business side of things,
sure,
of that nature. But when I'm with the kids, when I'm with other coaches, and when we're, encouraging them to teach a certain way or coach a certain way or teach them our mission and our philosophy, and see that light bulb go off and then flip the switch, like it's a gift. It's a total gift.
Very good. Kate, let me ask you something. Cindy and I were just talking a few moments ago about, I don't know if you were able to catch the first part of it, but we were talking about really confidence and sort of how to instill that. You're obviously working with a lot of juniors and a lot of youngsters and that. What are some things that you do to instill confidence, and how do you help them sort of find their confidence? What are some things that you do in your teaching programs to help build that confidence? Because that's obviously important if you want to go out and play your best golf at whatever level it may be. You have to have a certain element of confidence. So how do you do that? There's obviously a natural ability, but you have to also help sort of coach or guide them in that direction. What are some things that you do with your students?
Sure. Well, I teach groups of children. So for us, the number one important thing is just creating a learning environment that's warm and welcoming. And I don't think that matters whether the children, now granted my my audience is really the, like, say, 3 to 8 year olds. But you know, above and beyond that, even our teenagers and our advanced programming, you know, regardless of the age, I think it boils down to creating a warm and welcoming environment that's really student centered, and understanding that there happens to be a human being, you know, behind the sport and the person that's swinging the golf club. And so it's being there for them. It's guiding them through their points of reference, where they're at in any particular moment, whether it's, you know, I mean, my God, these kids have so much pressure of school and things going on in their world that the first most important thing for us that we do in every single class, whether it's a 3-year-old or a 14-year-old, is we connect. And if that's sitting in a circle for the first 5 minutes and getting those children to understand and know that we're there for them, and we build that trust, and we create routines, and there's a structure, and there are boundaries, and these children are working within them, but ultimately they know that we're there for them. I think that promotes a huge amount of confidence. When I'm talking about the younger children, we have 4 S's in our program. We keep them safe, we keep it simple, we keep them successful, and we keep it silly. You know, so I think the idea of challenging them in an age-appropriate way and allowing them to feel successful makes them want to come back and repeat it and do it more and more and more. And that's not to say that we don't challenge them and we don't get them outside their comfort zone, but when we're introducing golf to a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6-year-old in very, very pivotal, you know, stages of their development, it's very important that we keep them successful and that we're constantly tuning into, okay, well, when do we make it a little bit more challenging, or maybe it's too challenging, maybe we bring it back down. I mean, I've had kids where they've putt from, you know, 6 inches from the snag target, and they think they just won the Masters. You know, they get the little fist pump going, and they pull the ball off and want to do it again and again and again and again. And when they're ready, then we challenge them. And I think it's just a matter of tuning into, you know, when that right time is.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do the parents get to sit and watch, or do you make them go away?
We discourage. We have a little disclaimer on our website that asks them to sit 50 yards away. But when we're talking about an age group that's 3, 4, 5, I mean, oftentimes that's their first time in their world where they're, you know, going to an after-school activity, or they're separating from their parents that way. So we allow them to sit in for a bit and watch, but then we absolutely discourage it. And, you know, we educate them. We talk to them that this is their process, and this is, you know, when they're around, they're going to be different animals. And, you know, for the most part, they get it. And, of course, just as anybody that's ever dealt with junior golf or education on any level, any sport, you know, there's going to be a few. There are going to be a few. So you pick your battle, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few mama tigers out there that hover around their children throughout the process. And that can be difficult for sure, Kate. And you know, I know other you know, teacher professionals that work specifically in junior programs, and that is you know, something that you have. I mean, obviously, especially if it's a first time you know, student that's coming working with the teacher, and you know, the parents are a little nervous. They're not sure what's to be expected, and you can tell them 1,000 times, but they're obviously going to be a little bit nervous until they kind of get a sense of things, that everything's going to be all right. But that is sort of a fine line that you have to balance. What do you mean by when you say the whole child approach? What do you mean by that statement?
Well, I mean, it goes far beyond the physical domain, right? I mean, so we're teaching them a physical skill of golf, but, you know, what are they thinking? What cognitive level are they at? How can we incorporate maybe an academic tie into this game? How can we tie in a science or math or geography lesson? They're creative people. They like to play. They're creative human beings. So how can you type creativity? What does that ball turn into? What does the target turn into? What kind of metaphors are you using to talk about tempo and, you know, tension or any of the essentials of playing golf? What kind of creativity are you peppering in? You know, what's going on socially? Are they having a bad day because little Johnny was, you know, saying that they could do it better? You know, how are you going to deal with that situation? Because all of that, there's not, you know, it's just, I've said this over and over again, there's just not one domain of development that works independently of one another. You know, and if you're not tuning into all of them and understanding how each one affects one another, then I think, you know, we're missing a boat, or we're just, it's not going to be as effective as we possibly could be. So that's what I mean.
How many? I know that you've really grown your program, you know, in the last few years to be like amazing. How many locations do you have?
Right now we are currently in, our winter kind of slows down to some extent because our park programs come indoors, and renting space in New York is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
No.
So our school programs that remain, you know, for 32 weeks out of the year, we're in, I want to say 18 schools currently. We rent another 3 indoor locations where we have an offering of 10 to 15 classes a week in there, and that's our sort of direct-to-consumer private program. And then we, my greatest joy right now is the Harlem Children's Zone. We're in the Harlem Children's Zone right now. I have coaches teaching 20 kids ages 4 and 5 from, you know, very underprivileged schools in Harlem that come to this. They get bused into this huge armory, and that class is going on right now. So. Yeah, I mean,
who pays for that? Do the parents pay for that, or the school?
No, the Harlem Children's Zone is a really well-funded organization. So they utilize this armory, and then there's about 20 different charter schools throughout Harlem, and they raise money and they bring the kids in. And so they reached out to us in April. It was one of my greatest compliments. They found us. They thought that we were a very like-minded organization, and they wanted us to be their golf provider. So we piloted a program this summer, and they invited us back to come and teach 3 classes in the fall. And now we're teaching in the winter, and we've re-upped our contract, and it's just been the greatest thing to bring golf to kids that otherwise just wouldn't have it. And in New York City,
absolutely.
You know, it's a total affirmation each and every time we walk into that place why we do what we do, and that this goes far beyond, you know, the game of golf, far beyond.
Absolutely. That's
great. That's fantastic. Let me ask you, Kate. You know, we've heard now for several years, you know, everybody the buzz phrase is, you know, growing the game, and that's been going around here for a long, long time. But do you have a way of monitoring the students that are coming in? Or do you sort of keep in touch in some fashion so that you know, especially the younger ones coming in at 3, 4, 5 years old, to see, you know, as things progress, how many of them are sort of sticking around the game, and how many sort of peter off and just do other things and lose interest? Do you have a way of monitoring that, or have you developed a way to keep an idea of how many of these youngsters that are being introduced to the game, which is very important through your programs, how many of them are sort of sticking with golf as time goes on?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Ted, and I think there's part of me that's going to rock the boat a little bit and just tell you that my why of what I do has always been, again, I'm going to totally rock the boat and probably make a bunch of golf professionals out there upset, but I have no problem with that. I'm in it to the growth. I'm in what I do to grow the child. And I believe that by flipping that switch and changing the way of thinking, and that if we really grow the person, then that ultimately in the long run is going to grow the game. I don't know how to, put a statistic to that or keep track of that.
Sure.
The other side of that is that I've been in business since 2010, and, my kids are all 3 and 4 and 5 when they start. And so, yeah, I've got plenty of kids that have been in the program. Brian Shaw has never missed a semester since he was age 4. He's now 11. The short answer is no. I don't have the formula for how to keep track of that, and that's not important to me. I mean, obviously, from a business standpoint, I want to be able to, state those numbers. And I'll figure that out if that's ultimately at the end of the day what's truly important. But beyond that, what's important is that, you see these kids for a few semesters and they're using golf as a vehicle to become empowered and to develop all these different domains. And if it means that they go on and take a risk in another venue of their life, whether it be, now they're not shy and they want to go play soccer or do other things that kids should be doing, then I feel like I've done my job. And if they come back to golf, I get pros throughout the country, really, that say, oh, little Sally was in your golf program, and now they're down in, wherever. They're out in South Carolina. Or the pro at Maidstone. Oh, I had Katie in my program, and she said that she learned how to play golf with you. So, I hear a lot of that, but I don't, I'm not putting numbers to it.
Well,
not a great answer, I know.
No, that's perfect. I agree wholeheartedly with you. Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I've got to ask her, how did you get into the 32 weeks per year with the school system? I mean, that's awesome. How many schools are you in?
Well, we're in 20 to 25, but again, so every single school we're not in for 32 weeks. I'm just using that as an academic calendar. Some schools we are, and some schools we're in, say, a fall program, and then we're not in again until the spring, and it's just based on the location and what their, logistics of whether they have a cafeteria for us to use or whether they have the gym or what. I mean, many times, 90% of these schools that we're in, we're not in a gymnasium. I mean, you'd be amazed at what we teach in. We teach in a cafeteria. We teach in a hallway and 3 classrooms. We teach in, some schools we do have a gymnasium. We teach on a rooftop only in the spring because that's when they can take us. But it's just
how many kids are in each class?
Anywhere between I will put a coach in a program as long as we have a minimum of 4 kids, and then we go up to Marymount, which is an all-girls school on the Upper East Side. We have 18 kids there, 18 girls.
Wow.
That's our biggest program. Yeah, that's our biggest program. And we use Central Park as our classroom. And then when it gets cold, we go into an auditorium, and the girls have a blast. I mean, my coach, Val's just rocking that program for 5 years now. They love it.
What are some of the ways?
Who pays for this? Do the parents pay for it after school?
Yeah, so we're an offering of their after-school program. The children can elect to take chess or fencing or golf. So that's our school program. And then our direct-to-consumer program is, parents sign on privately through us, and that's when we have our classes in Central Park.
So what do you charge for a child to take the after-school program, and how much is it per class?
Right now, all right, we're in New York City, so let me just preface that because everyone's like, sticker shock. So our lowest paying school is $27.50 per child per class, and we go upwards of $35 per child per class.
And how long is the class?
An hour. Some are an hour and 15 minutes.
And you bring the snag balls?
I have a coaching kit that has a mixture of tools. Yes, I have snag in it. I also have, depending on the age, I might have Littlest Golfer. I have Birdie Ball. I love Birdie Ball. I have U.S. Kids Golf. And then I just have what I call my prop kit, and that's just things that I've used over the years, things that I took from my creative movement classroom that I put into the kit, and they supplement the traditional golf equipment, and that's what really creates the game. So every coach that goes into a school with a coaching kit has the same list of materials.
That's awesome. So let me ask you again. I'm sorry to ask you all these questions, but I love it. I think some of our listeners might be interested. What is the first tee in New York City? Yeah,
the first tee is in New York City. Well, number one,
do you have issues?
I don't, because Cindy, we're really, big part of it is we're just teaching an entirely different socioeconomic demographic. The other part of it is that they don't have a program for 3 to 6-year-olds, which I hope to solve. And the other part of it is they are sort of on the outskirts of, or they're not going into the communities, quite honestly. I mean, they're either at Chelsea Piers. I don't know that they do anything at Randall's Island, and then they do something out at Moshlu, which is a little 9-hole golf course that we bring kids to on Saturdays. So we're going right into the communities, which I think is the difference. But they're going
what they're supposed to be doing?
You know what? Honestly, I probably should know a little bit more about the ins and outs of the first tee. What I can tell you is
and I don't either. That's why I thought, wow, I commend you. You are amazing. This is great. It's really, really cool.
Thank
you.
Let's
say we're at some elementary school. Would you do one program after school, or from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6?
Again, it just depends. It depends on how they structure it. We have a school downtown where we do a 3:15 class and then a 4:15 class. And again, that's just the way that they run their after-school program. And then at, say, a Marymount, again, their after-school program is simply 3:30 to 4:30, and that's it. So we're just one class. We are in discussions right now with an organization called Change for Kids, and that would start up in the fall, where we would actually, it's a great organization, similar to the Harlem Children's Zone. They seek out schools that are in transformation, so very transformative principals, that go into really, low socioeconomic pockets and handpick schools and provide funding for things that they need, things that they're lacking. So whether that be art or music or phys ed. So we're in conversations with them right now to go into the schools that they deem, need more physical things and put golf during the day into those schools. So I'm really excited about that partnership. Same thing with Harlem. Harlem Children's Zone, we sort of act as their physical education class, so to speak. So kids are getting bussed in at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and we see classes back to back. But the private schools that we're in, we're the after-school providers. We are one of many after-school providers.
Cool. If we had an after-school program at, Silver Creek Elementary, would it be once a week or every day after school?
You guys would, the school would have an after-school program every day, how much they chose to plug golf in. So another example might be, we're at, say, Sacred Heart, and we teach their pre-K and their kindergartners on Mondays, but then on Tuesdays they have us back to teach their first and second graders. And, again, that's just how they structure their program. And, we go in, we pitch the program, we consult, and we say that we're going to tailor our program to meet their needs, and we do it.
A lot of it, too, Kate, I imagine that, number one, as you said, it depends on the school's after-school program, what their curriculum is, but also the level of interest at a particular location. If they have a large interest coming from some of the students to want to have you come there and do what you're doing, then that may involve opening up additional days throughout the week, correct?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
What do you work with? And obviously, you're going to have, in addition to some assertive parents, you're going to have some kids that, even at a young age, that maybe have been introduced already to golf and are very interested in wanting to play at different levels throughout their process. Do you work with any other junior programs in the area for those students that maybe show specific talent that may want to learn or know how to go about getting involved? Do you offer some of that advice, whether it be to the parents or to the kids, to those that maybe want to go into a junior program where they're actually playing in junior events? Do you have any sort of affiliation connection?
Our affiliation, I would say right now, we have, again, our advanced kids that we bust out to a facility in Riverdale, just north of the city. It's just over it's just like 5 minutes north of the city, and it's an indoor facility where it has a couple of simulators and some hitting bays and a synthetic putting green. We take our kids to Moxley, the 9-hole golf course. Those are for kids that advanced out of our program and want, they want to really, really get into golf in a more traditional way. That's my association right now. The Big Apple LPGA Girls Golf, we work with them. We do some special events with them, and we have a program called Friday Night Swings. She actually just reached out, the head of that reached out to me, and she wants me to come in and talk to the parents about getting involved in the U.S. Kids Golf Tournaments and what that looks like and how to support their kids. There are opportunities. I wouldn't say I do a huge amount of that, but, certainly as this business grows and more kids are coming through the program and becoming interested in golf, I would expect that there's going to be a lot more of those opportunities.
Fantastic. And what about the importance of play? I mean, obviously you want to teach, the kids sort of some of the basic. At that level, it's you can't get too technical with them, and you want to teach them sort of the fundamentals of golf, if you will, and sort of the basics, so they have a general understanding. But how important is play for them, and getting them out and as you said, out on the course or out in a sort of real life situation? How important is that in part of the development of your program?
No, we're talking about play. Okay, you just threw me off a little bit. Play is
you're talking about play within the confines of the program, right?
Yeah, that's
okay.
I mean, is that what you're referring to? Test is silly. It needs to be silly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's number one. It's absolutely the number one. It's how I sign off every email is play to learn, and I just think that's a huge way that not only golf or any other sport, education for that matter, is missing the boat. I mean, these kids in New York City, they go into kindergarten, they start having homework, and they're not able to stare at the walls and create and play anymore, and it gets too serious too soon. And what I've learned over the years of teaching juniors, early juniors, I've also learned over the years that the older juniors want to play. Who doesn't want to play? We forget how to play. We grow up, we get old, we forget how to play, and it's not the way our bodies, it's not the way humans were meant to be. We're meant to play. We're meant to have play in our world. And, it's all of these concepts. We call them birdieism. Birdie was in Golf Digest this month. I'm very, very proud of Birdie. Birdie's our mascot. And birdieisms are those are our coaching tips. That's how we teach the fundamentals of golf. So you give me a concept, I challenge you to give me any concept, and I can give you a birdieism on how we teach children. And it's just a simple metaphor. It gets on their level and uses their points of reference. And they understand tempo and shaft angle. They understand tension awareness. They understand posture. They understand grip. They just don't understand it in the technical terms that golf pros, spit out. They understand it on their terms, their points of reference. And these kids are learning. They understand that when they bow to the king, that ball goes up in the air. They stand straight up like a pencil and they swing. The ball's not going to go in the air. They're understanding trajectory. They're understanding how to get the ball up in the air. I mean, all of it. I'm not going to sit there and say, okay, let's hinge at the hips and let's get our...
Right.
Well, let's hear that.
Oh, my God. They don't care.
No,
they
that's
don't
true.
care. But they're learning it. They understand a chip shot is just keeping it under the glass table because they don't want to break the glass table because, mom would be upset. And they know it's a medium swing. And before they know it, they know that the ball is going to travel only that far because it's a chip shot. And they're 3, 4. So, we build, it's points of reference that we build on. And then as they get older, and we'll pepper in. Hey, remember when we were talking about squishing the bug? Well, that's actually called pivot and weight transfer. And here's what it does. And then they know. They understand it.
Right. It's more age appropriate.
Totally.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I misunderstood what you meant in that talking point. I thought you were referring to, getting them out and having them play, in more real life golf situations and that. But I understand what you're saying. You're right, and I think it is important that they first and foremost, as you put it, they have to have fun. They have to enjoy what they're doing, and if it gets too technical or too overwhelming or too demanding, they're going to shy away from that because it just makes it too difficult. What do you do, or what would you advise? Because there's obviously, a lot of people out there. There's some great professionals out there that are also working in junior programs. But if you were to sort of impart some wisdom to some of your fellow pros in working particularly with this age group, what would you advise them on how to really sort of handle their curriculums? And I know you're not trying to tell them how to run their business, but what would you advise them from what your experience has been over the last several years?
I think my greatest tool has been being in the classroom for so many years and understanding the developmental differences between each age. I oftentimes, as I get a new coach that's sort of wet behind the ears, as I listen to them, and here's just one silly little example. They might teach to a 6-year-old as if or they might talk to a 6-year-old as if they're 4, or vice versa. They might talk to a 4-year-old as if they're 6, and you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them one way or the other. Because if you don't understand where children are at developmentally, and what I mean developmentally, I mean by 6 months at a time at these particular ages, but even if they get older, big differences between an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. Like, what's relevant in their world? How do they socialize? Watch them play. Give them 15 minutes of free time and watch them play and see how they interact with the world, with each other, with themselves, with, a ball or whatever it may be. And just start to tap into and understand where they're at, and then, use your curriculum and build one around that. Use that bit of information and build a curriculum around that. For me, that would be and then find people to support you that love children, that know children, right? Because it's going to be a huge weapon. I mean, I'm sorry, but who cares if they know golf? If they know children and you know the golf, then you've got a winning combination.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's fantastic. What's been some of the feedback that you've gotten through the programs, whether it be from parents and or even some of the kids that are doing? What's some of the feedback that you've gotten that's helped you to sort of do what you're doing and keep that process going? What's some of the feedback that you get from your students and the parents as well?
Well, we have Testimonial Tuesdays, so if you go to my Facebook page and see a testimonial today, we collect testimonials from after-school directors or parents or students themselves. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. When a child is running to golf class, from Madison Avenue, and they're running, and the mom's like, hold on, that right there. But to see the joy on the child's face, I'm very, very blessed. We've got parents that would go to bat for us any day of the week, and they put together custom classes. Here's a good example. We've got many parents that are putting together custom classes and, getting kids from the same classroom, their child's class, to come and take golf because they're just word of mouth. They're just telling other parents about it. Even though you don't play golf and nobody in your family plays golf, here's a great program. It's very child-centric. This is Kate. She's an educator for 10 years. So I was very blessed. I was in a private school on the Upper East Side for 10 years, and I've been out of that for 6, and we still have, every single classroom from that preschool creates a custom class because they know that what we do is so much more than golf.
Let me just ask one other question with respect to the business side of things. Is your program, because there's so many national junior programs out there, I mean, there's 100,000 of them at least that I can think of just off the top of my head, and that's without doing a lot of research. Is your type of program something that would be difficult to nationalize? And the reason why, and let me just clarify why I mean that, because what you're doing really here is you're growing the game in a different way. You're actually growing, as you said, the child's development. To put this on a national scale, is there a danger that it becomes too commercialized? And the point that you're trying to make here today is it's about the child development, not so much about the next 100,000 or a million golfers coming in. You know what I'm saying? Is there a danger of it getting too big that it sort of loses its focus? And how do you go about combating that, do you think?
I think that's inevitable. There's always that. I want to maintain quality control, and I'm in conversations right now with a national expansion project with a camp program that has 45 different territories across the country. I'm also in conversations with a school system out in California that we're going to be putting it into in the fall of 2016. I think it's recruiting the right people. Again, it goes back to finding those people that really know children and tapping into the education world, and not necessarily the golf pro world. But yes, it is absolutely something that can be nationalized. Doug Lowry up in Canada has licensed my curriculum. He's had 300 kids ages 3 to 6 in his program. He's a phenomenal junior golf coach who has tons of juniors in his program. He didn't have a 7 and under group, so he brought me up. I trained 8 of his coaches. He went out and put the early birdie program in 4 of his facilities, and before you know it, he had 300 kids ages 4 to 7.
So there you do offer licensing of your program. That's great to know.
And then every coach would get a sign, and all of my coaches get a sign in. They get a login to my website, and they can see. So we have a written curriculum. We have version 1, version 2, and then all of our games and our curriculum is in the inside of our website. So you get a login. I have an Edify subscription, so for $15 a month, you can come in and get a little window into what we do, which I think is really powerful, because I could sit here until I'm blue in the face and tell you about these games that we play and how much the kids love them. But when you actually see them in action and you see the faces and the kids light up and the teachable moments that are going on and how we do it and how we teach our birdieisms, I think that's really powerful. So, there's a bunch of ways out there to bring this into. And honestly, I think every golf course across the world should have this program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody should be. And, and here's the thing, and somebody asked me the other day, well, why don't they? Well, because they don't want the kids running around the putting green. Well, here's the answer. Create a space and place for them to play. You don't need the golf course to teach 3 to 6-year-olds. You can bring them out for some of the time. Absolutely, that would be wonderful. Of course that would be wonderful. But a wing foot, I'm telling my friend Allie people, you use the parking lot on a Sunday afternoon. You don't need the putting green. You don't need to worry about Mr. So-and-so. There's no reason why every golf course across the world could not have a program that is catered to the 3 to 6-year-olds.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the fact that you do things in Central Park. Being in visiting New York many times over my lifespan so far. It's a beautiful city, and Central Park is just absolutely gorgeous. So I could see as a youngster, I wish I had that opportunity to be playing in Central Park, on any given day. That's a lot of fun, and I could see how they would enjoy it.
Blessing. That right there has been a blessing. That forces you to get outside the box and get creative, and that's where my best games have come from. And any child, who's not going to love chipping over a park bench or trying to hit a garbage can or, playing a par game to a tree rather than a hole. You're still learning par, you're still learning order play and etiquette. You're hitting a tree, and that's where the creativity comes in, and it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kate, we just have a few moments left here. I want to give you an opportunity, obviously, in addition to talking about your program, to let the folks know where they can get in touch with you or how they can go about getting in touch if they're interested in number one, maybe getting their school involved. That'd be a great start. And also, as a parent, wanting to find out more about the programs that you offer. So where can they go to do that?
Sure.
Do you have a web?
My website is KTUGA, and that stands for Kate Tempesta's Urban Golf Academy.com, KTUGA.com. They can always email me at kate@ktuga.com. We have a Facebook page, which is just Kate Tempesta's Urban Golf Academy, and that just, keeps you posted on day-to-day events, maybe some calls to action, or, as I said, Tuesdays. We used to do Tuesdays tips. Now we're doing Tuesdays testimonials. What else? I mean, I have Twitter, which is KT Urban Golf, and Instagram, KTUGA 2015. But beyond that, I think the website really,
Right.
I have my blogs on there. You can really get an idea of my philosophy. It has information on licensing. It has the schedule. It has my blogs. It has everything.
Fantastic. Well, Kate, we want to thank you. Yeah, we want to thank you for coming on. As always, we enjoy, having you talk about obviously it's a passion for you, and rightly so. You've done a fantastic job, as Cindy had talked about, and we want to wish you much continued success and know that you always have a home here on the Women of Golf Show. You're welcome to come back anytime, and maybe the next time you come back on, maybe somehow we could work out to maybe have one or more of the students. I know it's a little difficult with 3 to 6-year-olds, but maybe some of the students, maybe we could get them to call in with you and talk about their experience and some of the things that they enjoy about the program. I think that would be fun for the listeners to hear it right from as I say, from the horse's mouth. So, but Kate, much continued success, and thank you very much for sharing that information with our audience this morning.
Anytime, Pat. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Cindy. I'll see you next week, Cindy.
Okay, honey. Can't wait to see you.
Right.
Thank you again.
All right.
Great job.
All right, love you guys.
Doing.
Thanks.
Love you too.
All
Bye.
right, thanks, Kate. All right, bye-bye. That was, of course, our very special guest this morning, Kate Tempesta, the director of junior golf program at Montauk Downs, and obviously has some great things going on at a lot of the schools. I think that's a fantastic idea. Cindy, one of the things I like, it was interesting about what Kate talked about is, as I said, there are a ton of junior programs out there, but many of the programs that we often hear about are really a funnel, if you will, into other junior programs to get them in competitive play, and which is an important area as well. But there's a lot of kids out there that maybe don't necessarily have the desire to play at a competitive level, but they just like what they can do and just enjoy going out there and just having fun. And that's really what we want people that play golf is first and foremost, is just to have fun, right?
Absolutely. Well, she's making a difference in children's lives.
Right.
And who cares how good they get? That's the point.
Right. Yeah.
She's making a difference in children's lives, and that's her number one mission. And whether they ever keep playing, she doesn't care.
Right.
But you know what?
Right.
They're going to like her, and they're going to like golf. They're not going to hate golf because of her.
Right. And
whether they keep playing is up to them, and that's what it should be about. It's not about how many tournaments have you played, what did you shoot, how many times did you hit balls this week. That's not fun.
No.
So it's age appropriate is what it is.
Right, and that is the point. I think that if we in the golf professional, I mean, obviously we all want to do different things to grow the game, and it is important to want to encourage people to play golf. But you hit it right on the head. I think if they're having fun and it's an enjoyable experience at that age, they're more than certainly not everybody, but a good percentage, I think, will say, hey, this is something, as they get older, are going to want to continue that journey. And whether they, whether they play competitive or whether they just go out there and play with some friends or family at some point later in their life, if it's a pleasurable experience as a youngster, they're more than likely will gravitate later on in life. If it's not a pleasurable experience and they're not enjoying it, it's intimidating, and it's all of these other sort of negative things that sometimes we hear, and that's not just in golf, that's in everything. They're not apt to want to continue that experience as they get older and mature. So kudos to Kate Tempesta for doing a fine job up in New York, and I wish her all the success in expanding that program. Speaking of fun, very quickly, Cindy, I know that we've got to go here, but remind everybody about your boot camps coming up. And
yes,
if there's
boot
still
camp,
some availability?
Yes, there is. February 14th to the 18th, there is still one spot open. And April 6th to the 10th, I think there's two. At Orange County National. If you are interested, email me, cindy@cindymillergolf.com. And the other thing is I just put a little note on Facebook yesterday. I've got a lot of free golf tips, so you can sign up for some free golf tips. Maybe I'll send you the link, Ted, and you can
Okay.
post.
I would be more than happy to. For those of you that may be tuning in for the first time, Cindy Miller, of course, is probably one of the hardest working women in golf today. She's always on the go, always got something cooking, if you will, in golf, whether it's play or whether it's helping others out there. So you definitely want to visit her website as well, cindymillergolf.com. Lots of great things there. Learn more about the boot camps that she does, and if you're interested in working with Cindy Miller, make sure that you reach out to her at cindy@cindymillergolf.com. One final note. Next week, of course, is the PGA Merchandising Show. I'm doing my darnest. I was scheduled to come down. I'm not 100% sure yet, Cindy. Things may have changed for me here this past week, so I'm not even 100% sure. But I'm going to do my darnest to make sure I get down there, and if so, we'll make sure that we get together. But I'll let you know as we get a little bit closer. But for those of you that are tuning into the show this morning, thank you very much. As always, we enjoy having you tune in. Please spread the word. We're here to stay, and that we're always going to have some great, interesting guests, and we're going to do some very exciting things as the year progresses, so make sure that you stay tuned here in the Women of Golf. Thank you very much for all of the audience around the world for tuning in faithfully, and all of our special guests that join us each and every week. And thank you, Cindy Miller, for all the great work that you do.
Thank you, Ted. It's a pleasure.
All right, have a great week, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you next time on the Women of Golf.